As loud as it will go on this beautiful, hot, heat wave summer day here, 36 degree high. I think we're already at 28, 29. Welcome back, everyone. Artist Journal, July 2nd, 2025, broadcasting from the Summer of the Mind. A mix I did with my good friend Ryan. When was that? That was Montreal, going on 20 years ago. Crazy enough. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. It has finally happened. It has finally happened. No Hygiene. Kind of long overdue, isn't it? For such an original artist. It's kind of long overdue that No Hygiene is starting this show. But there's a reason for it, which is No Hygiene is not an easy artist. As we're going to see here, perhaps if you haven't seen No Hygiene's work, you will see how challenging, I would say the most challenging, but I would say wonderfully challenging, wonderfully, in a sense, I dare say obscure. What's kind of interesting about No Hygiene, like I've talked to people, it's, the way I think of No Hygiene is, if I had to go, if all of a sudden David Zwirner Gallery was watching the show and said, this is brilliant, what artist would you recommend we show at our gallery? Of course, David Zwirner, I think, right behind Gagosian. Some people think Zwirner's probably bigger. I don't know. I've been to a couple of things. I'm not like necessarily actually a huge David Zwirner fan, by the way, of the curation. I think it's fine. It's great, but it's not necessarily what I would do. But this is what I would recommend. I would say, hey, this I think fits your kind of contemporary art curation. Or what do they call it now? Ultra contemporary art. It's not really catching, is it? Have you noticed? Like, I see it every so often. You'll see ultra contemporary art. I would argue it's not catching. But should you have an ultra contemporary art, need, this is the kind of artist I would recommend. Why? Because there's a lot to grab onto iconographically. There is a lot of iconography. In other words, and what I mean by that is there's a soda. Unfortunately, this is the largest I can make it because it's a GIF. There's like a soda thing. There's meat. There's an angel, kind of a trademark image. There are some burgers. A bit of a meat theme here. They look like wedding cakes. And, so everything is recognizable. But it's all utterly alien at the same time. I mean, this almost looks like... You know what this looks like? Weirdly, with this tree in the middle, which is almost like an Adam and Eve type thing. It's almost like a Garden of Earthly Delights, but with wrong, I don't want to say the wrong order. But maybe this is like the garden, this is heaven here, and this is hell. But it's just that kind of structure. It's like a Hieronymus Bosch structure here. Now, and another important thing to emphasize here is, as far as I understand, and I don't know how else you would do this, this is AI. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there. What else is brilliant about No Hygiene and what makes it difficult and challenging? Even for, I'd almost say especially for me, but even for me, is, now it kind of comes in and out of focus here. That's Twitter or X, that's not much I can do. But you see how it's kind of JPEG'd out over here? Like we have these, where we saw it with the spider the other day, if you were watching, where No Hygiene will take like this fuzzed out spider or like that's super JPEG-y and kind of blurry as if something's been magnified 10 times. And it's like, well, you can't put that as an art piece and then puts like, maybe 500 Tezos on it or something, and then it sells. For example, speculatively speaking, we are going to see some examples here. So everything's familiar. It plays with digital, with the digital medium, right? And it's also, as far as like, we're kind of back to the AI discussion, it's sort of like MoMA and the contemporary art scene might think, when they think AI, they probably think, generally speaking, not everybody, but generally speaking, they probably think Rafik Anadol. Maybe even a lot of people in the crypto art scene as well as just art on the blockchain. But when I think AI art, I probably first think of Scamra, then I probably think of someone like No Hygiene. Like, to me, these are the, in my opinion, for what that's worth, these are the artists, among others, many others, who are exploring AI. But two examples of what it's tempting to call uncelebrated to a certain degree within, and that's what makes this scene so beautiful, is these artists do sell well within, a certain scene, right? Which hopefully will grow over time. But nevertheless, it's not like you're seeing Scamra at, the next big, show at the Whitney. Which I'd start to argue, like, if I was, in my little fantasy world, if I was to be having these kinds of discussions, it's like, well, what about this? So all to say, what final, I guess, part on this, again, it kind of has this triptych or, Garden of Earthly Delights, like, what do they call it? It's almost got an altarpiece type of structure here, which I think is super interesting. Like, in a sense, this really fits for the beginning of the show. In a sense, you could use almost any No Hygiene work and use it as a discussion point. But this has a particularly epic kind of feel to it in its, wedding cake structure, or is that a parking garage structure made of meat, or whatever this is, So a wonderfully original, almost I want to say defiantly original artist, I dare say. Let's look at some more. So this is going to be part of, I believe Fellowship is putting out a show on Alejandro Cartia. Fellowship Trust, I think, is putting on a show. I believe this is out July 17th, if I'm not mistaken. So cool. So congrats to No Hygiene there. Just going to... Oh! I almost forgot. Thank God I didn't forget. There is audio. There is audio. And you have to, it's like Italian talking about like, talking about dinner and cooking.
Tavolo carico di frattaglie, apice delle vibrazioni, cucina della mamma. Se la mamma
Mom's
fosse un
Kitchen.
SCP. Solo mob maledetti di Minecraft nella vita reale. Tutti rilassati come...
So who knows where that came from? A key part, of this piece. Thank God I remembered that. So wonderful work. This is just another example here of what you might call almost like outrageous content, in the sense of, you can't mint that. You can't do that. You can't put this fuzzy icon of an angel and then put turned into an angel today and then mint that. And then I guess it's of a classic meme. It almost like, but visually speaking, this, 1,000, and then put 1,000 Tezos on it, and you almost wonder if it's going to sell. It might. So here is some of the history. And we were looking at these works yesterday. This sold to Waffles here. I believe I brought it up. Pretty reasonable price, 65 Tezos for a one of one from No Hygiene. So Waffles picking up this one. We saw this yesterday, but here, because we can make it a little larger. This is the largest, actually, interestingly. And we almost see like a Square AI kind of a format here. And even the fact that it's not huge, perhaps, is a example or a clue about the creation through AI. Now, I wonder if this is a combination, this outrageous image, outrageous, if this is a combination of collage, like say the piece of meat, on top of AI, in collaboration, in a sense, with AI. It's kind of hard to imagine, again, this first work here being purely, like, was this so-called raw AI, or was this collage? One imagines it's collage in combination with raw AI. So here, again, the meat, that's still available. That is 125 Tezos. The angels go for a little more at 900 Tezos. Here is the fries that we looked at the other day. Now, we'll quickly go, as long as my internet cooperates here. So you'll see all of the amazing works here by No Hygiene. And you'll see an evolution, interestingly, has always put out these one-of-ones, generally speaking, not always, You see almost this wedding cake structure again with the angel on top. Has had quite a few sales, actually, in the last, still one of ones available. I mean, I might have to pick up a couple here. I mean, that's what's kind of wonderful as a collector of No Hygiene's work. Because, at least one, seemingly, at least one per day on average is coming out, sometimes more. And look, they're mostly sold out. Once in a while, you'll get an edition here. But this, 25 Tezos. There's even an angel in it. I might have to pick that up. I'm going to open that for after the show. You see, it's kind of like a collector's paradise here in terms of the amount of work that's available. So how cool is that? And these one-of-ones, who doesn't love one-of-ones? Now, what I'm trying to do here, you see the sheer volume of work. And, it's almost exhausting if you needed to collect. This looks awesome, too. If you wanted to collect No Hygiene's work, it's almost kind of exhausting. Because, where, are you going to look through? There's a 1,355, basically. Let's call it 1,200 one-of-ones, probably more. And quite a few were available till recently, when they started to get picked up about, let's call it 2 weeks ago. This is where we were earlier on. This is where I want to get to. When we first started paying attention, I believe it was Waffles, actually, who said on X, you might want to, or in a comment, you might want to pay attention to No Hygiene. Now, that is pretty prescient, isn't it? Quite prescient. And here, you can get one for $3 here, or $4, one of one. So, pretty cool. But you see how difficult, I would argue this, what I call difficult. Some people might have other words for it. But you see how challenging, it's probably the right word, this work is from a content and just an aesthetic perspective, right? It gets even more difficult, is what I would say, or more challenging the further you go back, because you see what looks like. I mean, the angels are pretty early. Interestingly, you do see the hints of the angels. And don't forget the 1 million views that one of those, I think, was on Instagram. And you see, there's still, a ton of that's been selling, though. You have to say, so pretty cool. Most of it was probably available, but collectors just love one-of-ones. But you see, it just goes on and on. Maybe I can do this from oldest, because we don't have endless time here. Let's look at some of the early work. So, as you see, some kind of, these were, I feel like we've started seeing pretty early on this artist, and look at, so many have sold. So, all to say, and then it kind of went into this video game thing. Which is when I probably started showing somewhere, because I saw it for a while, and I was like, I don't know what this is, and it took me a while, a few months. It's probably Waffles, his post. Anyways, No Hygiene. Here's another, where did I find this? October 30th. Oh, this is the one that I might pick up, 25 Tezos. And this is just a classic example. There's humor here too, right? We see, and this is why I think actually you could show this in somewhere like David Zwirner, because it's sort of it's kind of difficult, like contemporary art is, but there's something there, and so it kind of feels like a perfect hybrid, or crossover, shall we say? Here was another one, and I don't even know if this is gonna is this just my internet, or maybe this is how it is? This work here, I think. Is it how it is? I'm not even sure. Blurred. This is how it is. Right? Now, final point. And I mentioned this with Nuv1914, who's another great example of this. It's not easy to make these kinds of aesthetic decisions. It might seem that way and go, I'll just put anything up and then just call it art and I'll just magnify whatever. To actually go through, one thing's to think that. Another thing is to actually go through that process, put your name on it. I say it's anonymous account here, but put a brand on it, so to speak, and consistently do it, eventually you come out the other side and people go, wow, look at this blurry work here. Maybe I should buy that. That's a one of one for $13 of this crazy artist, right? So anyway, overdue to start with No Hygiene. Psychological Landscapes. Love the title of that show. Let us check the comments. Thank you for the support. As usual, Nicholas Dietrich, so who we started with here on this episode. Thanks so much for the feature, Adrian. Your assessment is really spot on. I depict places that I've experienced in real life and reconstruct them in another dimension. This one uses the 1965 architecture of the Didrikson Museum in Finland. Quite interesting. I mean, if I was a Didrikson Museum in Finland, like you should email this and just say, by the way, this was inspired by your museum. They might, again, these museums are trying to get into digital and they don't know what to do because the blockchain thing and the whole NFT thing, they think Taschen, right? And what we see in the Taschen books. So they don't know, they want to do digital, but they don't know how. I'm fascinated by metaphysics and Walter Russell. And Walter Russell was talking about how everything is a part of everything else in the universe. I'll have to look up Walter Russell, that nothing stands alone. Kind of sounds like slightly Neoplatonic. I think this can be emphasized in an artwork through a reduced palette. And here we only have one green. And this was actually a big takeaway here. I love this, but at different opacities. Only one green at different opacities. That is cool from a conceptual, like a process and just an art level. It makes everything just a little tighter. This is two colors and the green, I just changed the opacity. Very cool. As for the machines, they are symbols, but all remain enigmatic about that one for now. Hilarious. As I like to say, an enigmatic pixel artist. Wonderful to hear from you, Nicholas. Musty Art. I may be silent in the comments, but I still watch every episode. Fantastic as always. Thank you, my friend. It's great to hear from you. And it's good to know that you are lurking behind and watching there. Good to hear. Limby Knook, nice selection as always. Thank you. Appreciate that. And Tom Bombattle, awesome to hear from you. I'm waiting for new work from Tom Bombattle. If feel free to send it to me, Tom, because I love your pixel art. And I just haven't seen any, but in case you're posting it somewhere else, post in the community to let me know. That would be perfect, actually. Psychological Landscapes on X. This is quite interesting. Look at this. What I really appreciate, this is Andrea Balestrero. What I really appreciate about Nicholas Dietrich's work is his ability to communicate the atmospheres and psychology you were talking about with very few elements. Not only colors, but also in this case the architecture. Yes, I'm an architecture guy, of which we see few lines, but which immediately convey an environment and a situation. Also reminds me of Magritte. And the murder, but also this has a feeling of a Magritte, this Alex Colville here. It reminds me of Alex Colville too. The framing of the scene maybe, where what's cut out is as important as what is included, and from those few elements we can imagine a whole story that who knows if it's the right one. Of course, the same we can say of De Chirico. Another great show. Indeed, creating this very dreamlike scenario. This definitely has a Magritte-esque feeling to it, doesn't it? De Chirico, Magritte, again, these very psychological works here. And it's interesting. Like, the mind can't help but create narrative, association. It can't help it. So whenever we're giving, these disparate objects, we can't help but read narrative into it. Interestingly. Again, I think it was Ballard who was saying there's something about, say, novels that seems to really resonate with the central nervous system. Just a wonderful kind of thought, which is interesting. In a sense, we're story, making creatures, whether we like it or not. We cannot help it. I wrote this essay. I should actually revise it. Towards the real pataphysics, which is ultimately saying story is the preeminent, the prime matter, to use Aristotelian language, the matter that all matter is made from, so to speak, the prime matter of consciousness. I believe I called it. I need to go back to that essay. It needs a revision. But once revised, exciting. Thank you for the comment. Wonderful. August Ground, as per your observation on Tezos, market seeming resilient. I've received more offers in the last month than ever before. And some even creeping towards prying work from me, a hard feat indeed. Every day I'm seeing interest from people, many of whom I don't recognize. You know, this is going to come up in a second. I brought it up. Ral Pal has been from Real Vision, and of course, I guess, crypto finance influencer, right? Has really been pushing the crypto art. I wonder if this is, or just art on the blockchain, but mostly crypto art. You know, mostly what we might loosely call the Taschen book. Nevertheless, it may be sending signals to the crypto, like people in the scene, that, oh, you know what, art is going to come, and if art comes for, you know, as we see Neurocolor and Xcopy and what else, maybe it's going to come for Tezos too. And where are you going to get the most X's, you know, from just a purely speculative value, you know, ROI point of view. So I think Ral Pal is actually having an influence here. I brought up a tweet or two, actually, of his to just demonstrate. As I say here, it also could be business development, BD, by Object and Tezos, you know, going to that digital art mile, you know, going to all these, you know, art fairs and whatnot, Art Basel and whatnot. That could actually, you know, that has to have an impact as well. And as I say here, we're also seeing like what you might call traditional Ethereum investors, Ethereum art investors, are starting to seem to bridge over. Say, like we've seen RJ blow up, and we're going to see actually a couple of works by RJ, or at least one, this episode. And so if you love RJ's work and you are buying RJ's work on Ethereum, on Super Rare, you might be looking at the work on Tezos and going, I sure would like to buy that, and that's only $75, and these are going for $750 to $1,000 or more, maybe $3,000. Maybe I should, you know, get a wallet here and pick up some of this stuff. And there's a great reservoir, right? So I think that's also, we saw it with Waffles doing quite well recently. So indeed, there does seem to be a little bit of excitement coming from multiple sides here. One could also finally just say, like, as crypto gets really mainstream adoption from the financial sphere, I would still argue, despite other than financial machinations, so to speak, whether it's lending, money transfer, staking, you know, whatever, I don't even know what else, right? That there aren't that many use cases that people actually use. I think there are a lot of theoretic use cases, but there aren't many use cases that people actually use other than digital art. So it kind of becomes a natural thing to that, you know, shift as to, okay, what else is worth anything in this, you know, sphere, in the digital art? And I think there's a lot to be said from the thesis that Ral Pal has here. So interesting. We will take another look. Little Cakes. This is super interesting here. In response to what you said, way funner than what I often see in the galleries out here. Went around to several New York City galleries recently and only liked one of the shows. Went to a large group show yesterday near me and only liked one audio piece. Can't remember if it was always so boring. Exactly. And as I say here, there's nothing that, in a sense, pleases me more. Unfortunately, I do love a good art show when I go out in real life. But in a sense, nothing pleases me more being embedded in this ecosystem here than seeing another boring art show, because it just makes me think like, wow, we are onto something. Because when you look at the Kurt Hustle Collective and you see the little goldfish head melting, and you're like, and the music, and, you know, a journal of sleep, you're going like, this is like, I'm not falling asleep there, right? So the contrast, at a certain point, I mean, it's just kind of exciting, right? So in a sense, I'm thrilled. As I tell people, I love going to terrible art shows. No, he's terrible as for the sake of illustration. They're not so bad, but as you say, boring is maybe a better way of putting it. Too much art school, too much art school. Everybody's thinking the same. And if you're going to your expensive art school, how rebellious is this? How different are you going to think? Or are you going to be like, oh, this is the most prestigious place ever, and it's like in Germany here where you're judged according to who was your professor? I mean, how bonkers is that? How sad is that? Right? So, yeah, it continues, my friend. Great to hear from you, Cakes. David Lockhart. Hey, Adrian, regarding Oblivion Fields comments, consider setting up a Patreon account. This way you can continue your current workflow and simply mention it at the end of each show, and as an option for followers to support you with single or recurring donations. Food for thought. Yeah, so the reason I kind of defer a little bit to Substack, as Rural Idol was also saying, maybe Substack has a bit more, I feel like there's a bit more of a network, and I'm also I don't really write that much these days. Actually, I am writing a lot these days, kind of side project. But I do have like a writing background. And so, among other backgrounds, I do a lot of things over here. And so I do love this idea of cultivating a Substack, because maybe at some point I am just going, oh, you know what? Let's say I want to do art consultation for the sake of argument. People have said to me, you should, repeatedly, to different people, you should be doing art consultation. You're basically doing this free 3 times a week. So it's something that could be done as a side project where it's like, okay, we can look at old stuff and just consult on that. If you do a Substack, you can start to go, okay, here's the here's the pay level, and then here's the super pay where it's like, I talk to you and you go, what kind of collection are you trying to do? What are you trying to do here? Right? It's kind of fun to think about. And I think Substack would be probably the best, because then people can just go, oh, I just want to get some extra info, extra, thoughts here. And that's like $10 a month or whatever the case might be. So thank you for the comments. And I really appreciate everybody contributing here and giving their thoughts. It is helpful because as I'm juggling a lot of balls here. So all that help is helpful. So I think I'm going to still defer. I think I'm going to go to Substack. And I'm going to set it up again. Like it is set up, pixelnetwork.substack.com. But I need to recollect. I need to see what's been collected on my website. I need to kind of consolidate all the addresses and then give people a simple place to go. And I made a post. Double check. You can now double check if you haven't gotten the post, you're not signed up to this version of the Substack, which is going to be the version. Products. Loved your careful attention to the headline piece by Nicholas Dietrich. Indeed, a headline piece indeed. For the newspaper, The Imagination, it is not always easy to slow down and appreciate the details of a piece. Even one that is very attractive at first glance, little extra consideration really highlights the artwork's quality. Bravo. Thank you. That's great to hear. I appreciate the appreciation. Oblivion Fields, the more I learn about IPFS, the more I think this is a very robust solution. Very decentralized. So this is good. This is good news. Wish there were a quicker way to pin, so maybe that's something IPFS should be working on. But much of the art we get to experience is due in part to the efforts of dedicated preservationists. IPFS pinning seems a part of that now. So referring to the, I believe, physical art world. So good point. Oblivion Fields. We have a work by you this episode. FYI, August Ground, expert on provincialism. Ha ha ha. Me too, aptly put. Yes, and I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. As I like to say, I'm an expert on provincialism. Trippy Collector, you're rolling up your sleeves. Looking forward to another great episode. Thank you, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it. His Dribble Waffle, thank you for always having such kind and thoughtful words, Pocobelli. Well, thank you for commenting. Wonderful contributions here from Waffles, commenting on the show, supporting the show really with comments and sending works. Thank you for sending that work. What a masterpiece. I was thinking about that this morning. I was still thinking about that as I was kind of getting up. What a piece. What an incredible piece. So great to hear from you, my friend. T. Rick, less than 2 minutes in, we're already blessed with some metaphysical and surrealism. Holy flying melting clocks out of a bicycle sculpture. This is going to be a treat via the one and only Pocobelli. So thank you. Thank you, T-Rick. Great to hear from you. Glad you're enjoying it. Indeed, it's kind of fun, surrealism and surrealist thinking. It is, as Ballard put it, fiction is overwhelming external reality. And so, what is the main tool then that we should be using to diagnose what's going on in our reality? And he makes the argument it's surrealism, the tools of surrealism. So it's a very fun way to think. And then, provocatively, you can actually argue it's the realer interpretation. It's like actually the most sober, this wild, reversal is the most sober way of looking at reality. Quite interesting. The implications, my friends, are gigantic. Retro Manny, right on time. Good morning, Adrian. Coffee ready and lots to catch up on. Thank you, Manny. Great to hear from you. Zaf God, thank you for the comment. Deepest well. Thank you so much for the shout out, Pocobelli. These packs of hounds from the AI team deserve it. Indeed. Congratulations on the sales there, my friend. Mr. K, great to hear from you. Wonderful individual. Gelatin, great episode, Adrian. Thank you. So thank you for all the comments here. August Ground, cryptocurrency speculators should not be relied on for enduring or in-depth aesthetic refinement. This is the thing. This really has to be kept in mind here, because the reality is a lot of what's determined to be valuable in the art on the blockchain and crypto art worlds, to use both as a big umbrella term for both, is cryptocurrency speculators. So then this is the problem. This is why there's this kind of unholy alliance here, this non-marriage between, the crypto art scene and the contemporary art scene. That's why it's not married, because the contemporary art curators go, well, I'm not sure about this. At least that's what they'll tell me. When I say I'm doing a digital art show, they're like, so you do that, eh? So it's interesting. And so it explains a lot. Like, this is the reality. Okay? So we just have to take that as data and, think accordingly and, and move forward accordingly. So glad you appreciate that, August. Jan Lucas Magone, green start, indeed, that beautiful green. Is that a green? It's like a digital green. Mizan, intriguing topic. Yes, psychological landscapes. Can't wait to see how you explore the mind through art. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. We will continue these explorations. Sweet Soichi, great to hear from you. I think we have a work by you this episode. And here, T-Rick presenting the Kurt also click. This was awesome. I wonder if we're looking at it. I brought up Journal of Sleep, a new episode, this show. And Nostalgia Unlimited, thank you for the comment. And Tozo Shimoto, amazing show, would love to be featured one day. Yet this is what the community is for. I try and take a work from the community every show. I try. Nostalgia Unlimited, love the part about keeping experimenting. Indeed. Thank you for the comment, Nostalgia. And Ayaz Yildiz, thank you for the comment. A lot of comments. Okay. Now, this is a big deal. So a genius has passed. Jim Shooter. I don't know how many of you guys know who Jim Shooter is, but Jim Shooter was the editor-in-chief of Marvel, I think in the late 70s to the mid-80s, and also did Valiant Comics in, I believe, the early 90s, and really built, X-Men were selling in the early 80s, something like 250,000 copies. Amounts of copies that hadn't been really seen since the golden age of comics. 250,000 per edition, where it became a money machine. Awesomely, publishing, right? And so Jim Shooter, but the reason I'm bringing him up here, who passed away at age 73, is he was kind of celebrated, but not celebrated. I would argue he was basically an uncelebrated, not as much as he should have been. He was a genius. He was the true heir to Stan Lee. And there was never, I would argue there was no other obvious heir. There were other people, I'm sure they did okay work and whatever, but Jim Shooter got it. He was writing comics from 13 years old. The Legion of Superheroes for DC Comics. He knew what he was doing. But whenever you look at the reactions, people are like, oh, he was a difficult person. And this difficult person was fighting for royalties. He ended up getting royalties for a lot of these artists from the 1960s, like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, who were and even fighting to get their art back. They'd give it to the corporation, to Marvel, and they'd never see their art again. He made it a standard that the artists get their art back. This was a great individual, and I just look at over and over, you're just seeing, problems with Jim Shooter. So I just want to highlight here that this guy was brilliant. And I thought Rob Liefeld, there's reactions here. I thought Rob Liefeld, and there's Jim Shooter actually, founder of Defiant, which came after Valiant Comics, which he was also ostracized from after building from nothing. Valiant Comics made it the most exciting, property. Then they got rid of him and it died. And so who was the brilliant person there? This man here. So he hired Frank Miller. He hired David Mazzucchelli, not to go into the weeds here, but who was brilliant. So knew how to work with talent that was unrecognized, which is what he did with Valiant, and then make something great. David Lapham, he brought on for Harbinger. Okay, another huge talent, hires him as unrecognized. Nobody wants this kid. This kid's gonna do our, superhero team, comic, and it became huge, and David Lapham became huge. People still don't like the guy for some reason. Who cares about his personality? He's trying to do something great and has a good vision. If he's difficult to work with, who cares? If I owned Marvel, not to go on a rant here, but had I owned Marvel in the last 40 years, I'd just say, give it to Jim Shooter. He's running it. If you guys have a problem with it, find another job. Anyways, rant over. There's Rob Liefeld. He put it best. Jim Shooter has passed away at 73. Jim is the greatest editor-in-chief that Marvel had post-Stan Lee. Unlocked the greatness of Marvel's Braun era, activated Frank Miller, Walt Simonson, John Byrne, Bill Sienkiewicz, and so many others. Took a toy tie-in and made it a blockbuster with Secret Wars. So many achievements, gratitude for everything. So, well put. Well put. Is there anything more for... Yeah, so let's leave it there. And actually, no, let's not. The most important thing he did for all creators was initiate Marvel's royalty program that expanded what we could earn as cartoonists far beyond our page rates. We were given a percentage of our sales. So if you sold a lot of comics, you got a percentage thanks to Jim Shooter. Every artist or writer that received royalties from Marvel owes him a debt of gratitude. So good for Rob Liefeld. Another guy who is basically misunderstood and attacked. The nation's top retailer brought us together for the grand opening of Mile High Comics. So that's what you see here. So rest in peace. A great, one of the greats of the comics industry. This is gigantic here. Italy reduces VAT on art sales to 5%. You say, who cares? VAT is like the sales tax. In Europe, it's about 20%. In Italy, I think normally it's like 22%. But what you'll find, Paris is having a big deal. Part of the reason I want to move to Paris, and again, it may take a year or two, I may go a roundabout way about it. Let's see. Look at the opportunities that show up. But part of the reason why Paris is a big deal right now is because they lowered their VAT, I believe, to 5.5%. In London, I believe I don't know what they have for VAT, but I think it's 7%. In Germany, it's 7%. Maybe it's even higher in London. But what happens is the big galleries, the collectors, actually, first of all, if they're spending $1 million on a work, do you want to buy it in a place where you're paying 7% or 5%? 2% of $1 million or of $5 million really adds up, even if it's a smaller amount, right? So Italy, so there's kind of this competition. I could see this ending up at 0% at some point. Italy reduces VAT on art sales to 5%. Paris, it's 5.5%. And what you saw was a lot of the big galleries moved to Paris, especially post-Brexit. So that's why Paris is one of the reasons Paris is having a moment right now. Surprisingly to many of us, right? So Italy, so one could imagine Milan and Rome even Florence, could massively benefit, probably Milan especially. So very big deal here. Look at this. Italy will reduce the VAT on art from, it was 22% before, to 5%, following approval of the change in cabinet meeting on June 20th. Like, what were they thinking? So why would you buy a artwork in Italy? If you're going to pay 22%, wouldn't you rather buy it in Paris? I mean, probably, I imagine the galleries are like, you show it in Rome at Gagosian and say, but why don't you buy it in Paris? Wink, you know? Who knows? I don't know how that works. And I don't know how it goes art between borders there. So just speculating here. Deggy D, great comment here as we slowly move into this show. We're slowly moving away from a space that was and of course I follow Deggy D. We're slowly moving away from a space that was primarily focused on the novelty of transacting JPEGs and generative art collectibles with a heavy emphasis on charts and profits. Now we're entering a space where artists are using these peer-to-peer decentralized networks to create brand new artistic narratives, outside the control of art institutions and big galleries. Indeed, and I would even say social networks as well. It's a good, interesting question. Is it just the decentralized networks? Because I think I see it on Instagram as well. But point being, these networks, decentralized and also, I'd argue, Instagram and X is kind of a hybrid with working with these decentralized, but nevertheless making alternative narratives or new artistic narratives to the art scene. To the institutional art scene. A big part of the core of this movement is art that doesn't quite fit in a traditional white cube gallery, but somehow feels more at home in an environment that moves from laptop to laptop. To me, it feels like a warm virtual space where artists and collectors create, discuss, and collect from their sofas or kitchen tables outside the established white walls and traditional artists' ateliers. It's a new kind of shared digital space, and much of the art speaks about this place where we connect, extend ourselves, and somehow manage to touch one another. Despite all the frustrations many have felt in the aftermath of the trading delirium of the past few years, to me, this is the beauty of what this space is becoming. The glass half full for Deggy D, indeed, and there is a lot to be excited about here. I totally agree. Sometimes it's good to be aware of how unique and precious this is. Absolutely. It feels like a golden age here. It's fresh, it's just getting started, but it's truly special to be a part of this nascent, shared digital space. Beautifully put. So I wanted to share that here on this episode. Here's Ral Pal. So a couple of things. While I'm in the mood, I think no one, except for Punk6529, understands how big NFT technology will be. We currently only think of JPEGs, but it will also certainly be the vast majority of basic consumer crypto use cases in the coming decade. Any contract can and will be an NFT. I mean, to me, I think a lot of people, as this person says here, actually many of us do understand, but we won't call it NFT technology. We would say blockchain tech and smart contracts. This idolization of figures in the kind of Ethereum crypto art space, I just find bizarre. Like, really? So this person, for whatever reason, understands this way more, and so we're just going to allow... I just find this weird idolization thing. I'm kind of back to the provincial, weirdly. And I like Ral Pal, as a commentator and everything, entertaining, interesting, provocative, thoughtful. Now here, Ral Pal, nevertheless, so we'll just leave it there. Can we open up a little bit, please? Added my fourth Neurocolor to the Culture Vault, Book of Visions. I love Neurocolor's work. So fourth, Neurocolor is not cheap. I remember these going and I haven't looked for 2 years, but going for $100,000. Maybe it's cheaper now. But Neurocolor, I love Neurocolor's work. So this is just an example of Ral Pal pumping the art on, the art on the blockchain. And as a grand enveloping term, crypto art, whatever you want to call it. We've had that discussion many times. So, and this may be attracting financial people. So again, the $1 trillion question, the $1 billion question perhaps, is implications for art on the blockchain. In a sense, we see them pushing crypto art. What are the implications for art on the blockchain, as I like to call it loosely? FX Hash. The word legend gets thrown around a lot these days, but Eboy Arts are the real thing. They are a duo, founded in 1997 as a pixel art group. Eboy has, thanks to Kiro, I learned about them. Eboy have exhibited around the world and collaborated with headline names in art, fashion, and retail. True pixel art pioneers. Moreover, they've been a source of inspiration for an entire generation of digital artists. We're honored to welcome them to FX Hash as they launch Tower, one of the first open forum projects ever, along their art coin Eboy. Buy Eboy to mint, evolve, and build your tower. Not sure, so let's see how these artist coins go. I don't know how this is going to work, but to me, the most obvious thing to do with artist coins, and this looks pretty cool, but the most obvious thing to do with artist coins is to make it where you can buy art with the coin. Isn't that what you should be doing with a virtual currency? Because with Zora, you know, oh no, we'll turn the art into 1 million coins or 1 billion coins. That doesn't make sense to me. The thing that, or we'll just start a meme coin as an artist, that doesn't make sense to me either. It's like, if you're going to start a coin, make it so you can only buy your art with that coin. Like, isn't that the obvious thing to do? So I don't know how it works here. But it looks like it, actually. Buy Eboy to mint, evolve, and build your tower. So maybe that's how it works. To me, that was the most obvious thing to do, which never got done. Look at this, Kamo Art Center. Good thing I didn't have too many tabs this show. So this is delightful. I love surprise with art and where you don't know what's happening. So here you see this work. You go, oh, is that a digital artwork? Then, oh, wait, is this physical? Is this physical? Look at this. So how cool is that? Now the wreath is going to come back here. This wreath. These Japanese Hermipe, Kamo Art Center, always unpredictable here. Look at how beautiful this is. All of a sudden you return to this, what looks like a photo. You know what it looks like almost? It looks like a photo that has been turned into low resolution and then artified, so to speak, and then kind of manually adjusted, so to speak, where it's like, okay, this is what we'll do, where it's been interpreted. The photo has been interpreted, right? And then, so we have photography, then we have like a digital, let's call it a sprite or Photoshop, and then we have painting. So we are truly traveling between the mediums, and then we get this alchemical result, I dare say. Very, very cool. More wreaths. Here's Hermipe, who is associated with Kamo Art Center. So look at this. I mean, I think of the Michelangelo Tondo in what gallery? Is that the Uffizi? I believe I believe a tondo is the word for a circular artwork. Here it is a wreath, as you see, and some collage and pixel art. All, again, this wreath theme. Very cool. Very, very cool from Kamo Art Center, 50 centimeters by 50 centimeters. As we move into the art, here is Moda MT, edition of 10. Pretty cool, digital painting here, isn't it? Like, put it this way. If this was an oil painting that you saw in the gallery, you'd go, this is interesting. And you know what? I'd argue with about 3 weeks of training, you could turn this into into an oil painting. So isn't that interesting as well? This is quite beautifully done, as you see here. We'll have to double check that it is. Maybe this is physical. It kind of looks digital, though. Let's see if we have any clues here. PNG, I think this is digital, which I think is super interesting. And look at how kind of expertly, leaving the brushwork here. Very, very nice work here from Moda MT, who I interviewed actually in Buenos Aires about a year ago. That was wonderful. That was super cool. From wonderful people over there. Elegante Sport, edition of 10 for 5 Tezos. Brilliant painting here. Continuing on, Ladelmas. Great to see Ladelmas. Poise, I think is how you'd pronounce this. Not sure. Poise? Beautiful. Beautiful. Kind of this, not a mime, maybe a jester in this cube, square cube, but with circles. Brilliant design. Great color. Kind of minimal color, black and white, and then just pinks and reds. Gorgeous. Edition of 10, not listed yet. brilliant. Love Ladelmas. Went on a shopping spree about 6 months ago. I was like, I better get it. And yes, Israel. I picked this up, by the way. I love this piece by The Myth, and kind of, I think it's a play on Raphael, one of those, what do they call those? Maybe they called Azrael, I'm not sure. Play on one of the, there's a word for the little angels in Raphael's work. It'll come to me at some point. So only a Tezos Open Edition, available for another 8 hours. So if you hurry, you may catch it. Here is the Kurt Hustle Collective. Let's see what... Journal of Sleep. I love the music. All right. Journal of Sleep is just brilliant. I think actually Daggy D picked up a copy. Thank you for sending me that.
Eventually took the fall of a television. The noise brought me into a dark state of serenity.
It's taken me a bit to understand this series, like how great it is.
Took a second look at my TV remote, and it became my portable speaker playing what was told to me.
The glitching,
And then
the humor.
boom. I woke up listening to my tape deck.
So it's hard to move on. Then we have like a 30-second outro. Look at how well this is done. Again, I think of Little Cakes. Imagine, you're going to the gallery and you see this. You'd be like, wow, who the hell is that? Just another day at the office out here. Wonderfully. Again, big thank you to Daggy D. And then one on secondary selling for 70 Tezos to Neon Monk for sending me a copy here. Thank you. Much appreciated. Here is Scamra, or Ebser Deity, posting Scamra. I've just collected Cliff Dancing, so beautiful work here. More beautiful work from Scamra. Who does that look like? It looks like a little bit of a Hiroshige color scheme here, but who knows? Look at the water. Beautiful work here. And again, these wonderful margins on the left and right, but not on top. Again, we see almost this square AI basis, because sometimes, or bias, because sometimes AI will just output the squares, right? So this is, I think, why you see a lot of square artworks from AI artists. Case in point. Another one. Look at this. So just a woman, or I believe, walking at the beach. And here, what looks like a desktop and a landscape on the desktop, computer desktop. Again, brilliant textures here. Wonderful textures. Here's RJ, who of course I follow. That is a glitch on X, and so this is pretty cool. I have to say this. So taking what looks like work made on a phone, and then bleeding gums, and then when your gums won't stop bleeding, put on the phone. So kind of a meta work here. Commenting on the phone, and so kind of cool piece here. Not sure if it has gone to auction yet. This is on X. Love the teeth. Very nice. Here's Biza, Argentinian Heaven. So good to see Biza, who I used to call 3A, 5A, 1A. And out of, I believe, Buenos Aires or Argentina, and here what looks like a soccer lineup, but really perhaps Argentinian Heaven, a divine hall of fame of Argentina's cultural saints. Love it. So back, I believe that's on Flow blockchain, which I think was one of the first blockchains to do NFTs, like the NBA Top Shot. Wasn't that Flow? Edmarola, deep inside the forest, I found a group of strange people taking a bath. So this is on Object, cool canvas, right? A cool digital canvas here from Edmarola. Saw he just updated his Substack as well. Check that out. Love this. Kind of echoes of Rousseau, but quite different. But this giant jungle. The surrealists loved Rousseau, almost this jungle, which is a metaphor, one might say, for the unconscious, and then these figures just below, this little narrative happening. Beautiful work, edition of 11, listed for 222 Tezos on secondary, selling out at 20 Tezos on primary. Gorgeous digital painting. Here's Dan Control. This may be older work, but worth looking at. I mean, look at this juxtaposition of previous works that Dan Control has put together, always, commenting on the digital medium and what's possible. In that respect, just a brilliant, brilliant, important artist, a necessary artist, dare I say. Dan Control, wonderful work. Gradient artist, as we like to say. Los Lados del Rio, another gradient artist here, but with some blurriness too. So Nov 1914, some more outrageousness, dare we say. You could almost do, if you really want to shake things up, like a show of like Nov 1914 and No Hygiene, of challenging. You want to go avant-garde. Anyways, edition of 1 for 100 Tezos, offer of 100 Tezos coming in from Absurdity. So price is rising fast here. This is Camino del Velo Valle Plateado, and this went for 100 Tezos, offer coming in. So great to see this. I'm telling you, the market is resilient. I mean, these are real numbers here. So, you make your digital artwork, you get a quick $52 or 100 Tezos. Not bad at all. And putting out two pieces in the day, you've made your keep at $100 US. You've done well. And actually, you put out another work, and this one went for 40. So it's a great business. Once it starts working for you, your overhead is your time. So margins at 99% here. Whatever object takes, probably 2%. And you get everything immediately. So what's not to like here? Wana Pedro. New work. Awesome new work here by Wana Pedro. Interesting texture. So more interesting border here, and just another kind of sublime abstract. Night Boys, edition of 10, selling out at $750, now 55 Tezos on secondary. So it's an exciting market right now, isn't it? Here is Oblivion Fields, and we have Daggy D putting a bid on at 115 Tezos, $60. So it's a wonderful time out here. And so let's take a closer look, and some mix of pixelation, some mix of almost like this processed image, but with all sorts of mystery, frankly, in here. Kind of figurative, kind of abstract. You know what this looks like? I can tell. This looks like the wolf, the she-wolf, and here are the two Roman, here is Remus and Romulus. And here's the she-wolf after they have been abandoned to be killed. But of course, who was it? Saved them. And the she-wolf saved them. So all to say, who is it? I want to look back here. Who is can't believe, the main historian for Roman history? How am I forgetting this? The history of Rome. Yes, so maybe we have a reference here. That is where you'll get that in book 1, by the way. Is it Plutarch? Is it Plutarch? We'll look. We have to look. Mumble Boy. So beautiful one of one here from Mumble Boy. Maze No Phase, edition of 1. Still thinking about Plutarch, or who... we'll have to look that up, because I believe was commissioned by Augustus to write the history of Rome. Augustus, interestingly, also commissioned, or at least supported, Virgil. And I believe excommunicated or ostracized Ovid from Rome, which Ovid never got over, being the urbane figure that Ovid was. Anyways, Maze No Phase, Mumble Boy, one of one for 18 Tezos, nice piece. Beautiful digital and physical collage in combination. Louis with Android Gangster, which could hang right beside that Mumble Boy here. So interesting combination of collage and digital brush, kind of sampled brush elements. Cool work. Don't Mess with Operating Systems, edition of 5. And one sold for 12 Tezos. Continuing on, Times, thank you. You are amazing. So cool abstract here from Santiago, also known as Times. Kind of a different feel to this one. Here's Guru, Guru, Hyena, and Dark Doll, Triple Goddess Trinity edition of 1. And so here, interesting, kind of like a manga anime figure in combination with some glitchery and so cool processing here of a certain kind, or cool machinations. 4250. And here is Jean Provencher. This is on X, so cool experimentation here. Kind of always has these kind of different, playing with outputs, really, it seems, is part of what's going on here. This beautiful butterfly, a rose, right, and then doing several. And you even see some clues here. So bass. So maybe coming up with his own language here, a digital language, so to speak. So pretty cool work. I think shows really well. I think I have a Françoise Gamma. With Françoise Gamma, here is Uxine. Is this the full? It is. So look at these great textures by Uxine. So it continues to be interesting over here. And here is Gio Mariani, An Endless Cycle. So great to see Gio Mariani on the scene. How's this doing? 10 retweets. So very cool pioneering pixel artist on the object blockchain. Here is Françoise Gamma. If you have a hot summer like I have, here's a supply. So yeah, probably in Spain. It's probably insane. I think Françoise Gamma is in Spain, if I'm not mistaken. So cool addition of the UI in this work here. So that is on Instagram. And continuing on, Murakit, also known as Mirapixel on Zora, putting a couple of works on Zora. Just an awesome pixel artist here, or, pixel art painter. Often does these kind of awesome anime. Love this piece. I actually end the show with this piece. This I was tempted to start with because of what you see here. What I thought I saw the other day as well, I believe it was a zoom in of Sui Soichi. And what I think we see here as well, which is a celebration of JPEG artifacts. And taking those JPEG artifacts and then going, oh, I'm not going to try and get rid of that. If anything, I'm going to try and emphasize that. This is the equivalent of celebrating the drips of paintings, which were originally mistakes that you had to cover over. Right? You don't see any drips like pre-Max Ernst, basically, one could argue. To overgeneralize, but not really. So here, this is the digital equivalent, I would argue, which is, oh, this is a mistake, but now I'm going to celebrate this. And how much do we love drips now? We love it. It works with randomness. So gorgeous, gorgeous piece here on Zora. I wish Murakit would release more work on Tezos, or just around, just like stuff. But you could probably collect here, 27 cents volume. I mean, I think there'd be a lot of people ready to collect. It has some great series on object, nevertheless. Here's Sui Soichi. When I'm in the right mood, I work on a series that I've been doing since 2022 called Black Flowers, and I'd like to release it before I die. So here, combining pixel art in a very unique kind of drawing sort of way with noise of a certain kind. Look at those lips. Super interesting. Very cool. From Sui Soichi, here's Austin, Jeremy Austin, Moonted X, Charles Bay 2. So another really cool piece here from Jeremy Austin, working with pixel art. I wonder if this is on-chain. Has been putting, 100% on-chain. So this is going somewhere, isn't it? Wonderful. Edition of 5 for 20 Tezos and 1 sold. Cool work there. Marcel Muntianu, C43. So cool work here, kind of almost tempted to call it a pixel art abstract, or at least a digital abstract. Daytime, nighttime, nice cycle, and edition of 1, and that is at auction for 120 Tezos. Here's Jordy Gandel, Consume and Burn, and I think there were a few of these, kind of old school OG Tezos. I think Hen Artist, one of the first you come across when you are going through the older work, or that I came across. Always kind of known for doing these kind of architectural city, urban, kind of 45-degree angle works. Here, a little bit more complex. This might have been burned, but I think there are others in the series that is on object. Here is Daniel W., Seven Swords. Wonderful color scheme here. almost combining the Virgin Mary with the Seven of Swords in tarot. That sounds blasphemous. Cool. So, edition selling out. Edition of 15 at 14 Tezos. Resilient. Here is Seba Sestaro, A Giant Friend. So there, the stretched out, classic Seba Sestaro, the stretched out dog here. As you see, a wonderful digital drawing with some nice texture in the background, cool gradients as well. This might have been burned, but there's probably a newer version. Here's Limbo with a very cool two-color work. Looks like dark blue and just someone on the phone. So maybe a work in progress here from Limbo. Looks like another classic. The swimming pool, the palm tree, the dial-up phone. Perfect elements here. Perfect ingredients for a work. Martin Joe, amazing trippy artist and friend. Tornado Rodriguez, illustrator. So this, I believe, is an illustration of Tornado Rodriguez, almost in Tornado's style, done by Martin Joe. So there she is, 420, edition of 15, and 2 gone so far. Here is Eboy Arts, who we were talking about earlier. This is on Instagram, and you see, I guess they're using Photoshop, perhaps. And so perhaps a commentary on the process, and just a fun work here. Again, I think they actually work, like they've done work for Adobe. That's probably what's going on there. Here is Deadly Yucha. We're making a game in which a man who lost his wife goes in search of a UFO that shouldn't exist. So we've been seeing little glimpses of this whole series. So I saw a UFO. So this whole series could be completely turned into digital objects, as I like to call them, or NFTs or tokenized. Cassern with slightly different colors here, I believe, on this very cool work. This, sometimes Cassern makes these very complex, or has made very complex works. This is enough. This can be minted. This can be sold. Beautiful color here. I love actually that sky blue. It almost makes me remind me of, not of video games of my youth, although it does that too, but of the colors. Like it's like these retro sun-bleached colors here. Beautiful. This is enough. That is enough to mint. You're on Yacon. I love the content here. Deep sea cable with giant tube worm. So playing with the deep sea cable, combining geopolitics and kind of analog video pixel art, shall we call it? GIMP and Photomosh. That is on Object. Here's 409. I exhibited 111 with Tokyo and Super Chief. You can kind of hear the music. Not sure if that is... So just a little hint of the music there in case of copyright. Cool abstract here. Well, semi-abstract. Here's Ed Woods, self-help. So almost like an AI bot here. Again, pesky text and interesting textures. Kind of a nice, big, chunky pixels. Cool work here. That's on Object at 888. Love this little pesky logo. Here's Lorna Mills, funny old game. I don't think we've seen this one. So again, that could almost be with the deep sea cable. You could go thematically. Interestingly, and of course these are after racehorse names. Lorna Mills, that is an edition of 30. Here's LB, W95 Mousepath, edition of 1 for 125 Tezos, and what looks like a recording of a TV and a cursor going across and bouncing across the edges. Very cool. Outtakes from a small series minted on Zora. Here's Strano with a cool pixel art abstract. Good to see this series again. I think it was Strano that we saw maybe a year and a half ago do some works like this. Broken, perhaps that's the title. And here's Santiago Ruao with a cool abstract here as well, combining different elements from the abstracts, the circles, the ovals, the almost the writing that is turned into abstraction, and some lines. Beautiful color. Here, White Lie on Object. So that's available on Object. Dave on X, who puts out a lot of animated abstracts. And so this is July 1st and doing quite well here, as you can see, and tends to do quite well. Here's Feels, beautiful piece. 302 retweets, my God. 26,000 views. Gorgeous work here. Animated abstract from Feels, whose work is available on Object. Here's Toucan, Not For Me. So interesting, just up close, almost kind of looks like a person, but you can't tell. Analog video glitch, perhaps. Edition of 15 for 4 Tezos. And here's Hauntology by Gino, which I think didn't play last time. So a little more. We can't play the whole thing. Especially now at 1 hour and 10 minutes. I thought this was going to be a short show. Kind of looks like we're back to the geopolitical theme. I mean, what does that look like to you? That could also, I feel like I'm creating a show here on the fly. All it needs is a title. Maybe I'll have to do that. Hauntology, great title. Check out the whole thing, and that is actually owned by Having Fun for 120 Tezos. Interesting piece. Klaus, composition 501. So it continues after the 500th composition. Kind of looks like a computer almost. And we have another one by Klaus. This is gorgeous, number 503. That is selling. So cool. The series continues here from Klaus. Gorgeous colors here. Analog video glitch. Here's August Ground, digital and Syrian. So a 2-color work playing with, I believe, what is this? Minimal data painting with iPhone. Editing, data painting in Shotcut and GIMP. Edition of 1, and that sold for 25 Tezos. Here's Ile with some AI artwork, cybernetics. So cool series here from Ile, gorgeous textures, as you can see. Love it. Love it, love it. And putting out a whole series, which makes it all the more convincing when you have several applying a certain process. So Cybernetics 4 and Cybernetics 5, beautiful variation here in the series, and then even some natural, you have a tree and fruit with all of the technology. Again, we're kind of back to Garden Airplane Traps by Max Ernst. Here is Nostalgia Unlimited. This is on Object, Patiently Waiting. Nice piece here from Nostalgia Unlimited. Not sure, I assume that's AI. As we go into the physicals, here is Machine. And actually, we have the work here on Instagram. Look at how brilliant this work is. Just a vending machine, machining around. So great, another great, colorful, fun work from Machine. This is brilliant. Look at that, 3,000 likes. Brilliant. Glad to see success over there. Here's Telha. Lost Time is Never Found Again. Interesting piece here. Interesting pieces. Is that similar to the first? Interesting artist. So a few discoveries here. Nathan Pattison art. Interesting painting here. There's a ton of great painters on Instagram, and I'm loving it. Here's Gulorama. We've looked at a few works by Gulorama. This is hilarious. Wonderful piece here. Different versions. That is hilarious. So all sold. See, this is like a masterpiece here. This is so original. This is Bondozo Bandito, made in America. A tribute to Jasper Johns, Little Jasper. This is brilliant. Who's ever seen a flag like this? Brilliant, brilliant work by Bondozo Bandito. In tribute to Jasper Johns, here's Babici Mattia with a beautiful work. This is from 2023. And here is Akos Ezer installation views of these very interesting paintings. Hot tub oil on canvas. So again, modern iconography here, modern settings for oil painting, making it relevant. Ed Burks, 25 by 30 centimeters oil on canvas. Nice piece here. Artist I haven't seen before. And this was also interesting. Aiko Bisaya, looking like they're doing, love these lines over here, this physical of a manga. I feel like it's getting exciting here. How many likes? 984 likes. Like, I don't know what the contemporary art galleries are doing. Maybe they are bringing in, they probably are, to be fair, these artists from Instagram, but I just see opportunity everywhere. I'm starting to think I could actually do a show of physical. Because I don't even put that much effort into it, but if you put effort into it, like I put into the digital. Anyways, this show has gone on too long, my friends. Thank you for all your support and for joining me. Until next time, take care.